Welcome, everybody. How is it going? It is July 17th, 2025. This is the RambleCast, and I'm your host, Cody Toombs, and with me I have Corbin Davenport.
Hello.
It is, it's still hot here. It's not as hot as it was, but it's not a good time. So, probably going to keep it relatively brief today. Or not, because this is a RambleCast and you know what happens with when we start talking. It's a whole
I
thing.
mean, we can set a 5 minute timer on each of these topics, and we'll get in and out here in no time. Just
Honestly,
debate club rules.
uh, you know, uh, some of these topics I really don't think are going to make it too far past that 5 minute timer. But I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean it's also very toasty here. I had to walk outside to drop off packages at the post office. It's fine in here. I'm not going to think about what my power bill will be. We're only doing positive thoughts today. And speaking of positive thoughts, Nintendo the most being anti-consumer in ways never thought imaginable. Um, so hold on, my earbuds are being weird. Okay, turn them on. Um, so okay, so the backstory here is that someone bought a used game and then could not use any online services on their Switch anymore, their Nintendo Switch 2. And it turns out the problem with this was that they bought a used game that a previous owner had dumped. So like a game that the ROM for this is floating around on the internet somewhere. I don't know if they said what game it was. Um, but not that it really matters. Um, just that Nintendo will ban your Switch 2 console for something you did not do. Just if you buy a used game, you again a completely legitimate used game. This isn't like someone unknowingly bought like a fake game cart or something. Um, just fully didn't do anything, got their console banned, had to contact support. The support apparently did unban them, but that's not something they should have to do at all. And there's no guarantee that they will do that in every case because customer support just it just sucks sometimes. So, Nintendo has done a lot of anti-consumer stuff over the years, and it's hard to quantify all of it, but I think this is the worst one I've seen. This just because in every other case, it's even if it's something that should be legitimate, it's still something you're actively doing that Nintendo would not like you to do, right? It's like you're using an emulator, you're modding your console, whatever. Think
you're
some of
playing
those like
one of their games on a live stream.
right, something you're actively doing. But in this case, like you are a completely innocent person, and Nintendo will still smite you from the heavens. Um, so this is pretty gross. Especially when I think really the only point of the physical games at this point is to have something that you can buy and resell later if you want. And now that comes with the risk of better hope. There's like a chain of custody between every owner of your Switch game, like it's voting boxes in an election. You want to make sure one of those wasn't compromised.
Yeah, if this were a cell phone, for example, you can just literally look up, is the IMEI number blocked? Straight up, you can just check that. In fact, almost any piece of hardware where this or something like this can happen, there's usually some way you can just look it up prior to purchase. You can't do that with a Switch game. Now, maybe Nintendo will add something like that down the road. It's hard to say. But I think it's safe to say that's just never going to happen. Because honestly, Nintendo's not the type of company to ever make something like that available as a tool. And whether it's intended or not, I think Nintendo is thrilled with this because they like the idea of killing the secondhand market. Nintendo's never liked that there was a secondhand market. You can tell. And this is perfect for them. I mean, I'm sure Nintendo, again, whether they intended it or not, Nintendo probably saw this situation and realized this is the dream. This is exactly what we wanted. And so yeah, I'm pretty sure they're loving this. Like this is everything they could have hoped for and more. That being said, I'm I do struggle with this one a little bit. Obviously, like from the consumer side, no questions asked. This is horrible. There's no excuse for it. But I do sit here and think, what could Nintendo have done different? And the only real answer is literally just ignore it. Like that's it. There's really nothing they can do because once somebody dumps a game and then presumably resells the cart, and let's be honest, if they're reselling the cart, like you could dump the game, resell the cart before you ever release the dump, and then you release the dump of that game after you've already made back your money on the cart. Like that's
that's something you're supposed to be able to do. Like it's
yeah.
just like it's not like again, maybe there could theoretically be a problem of someone buying a game, dumping it, and then returning it to the store, but that is a problem for retailers to solve, which they do. When I worked at Office Depot, there was a guy who tried to return a fake printer cartridge, and it didn't work because the system flagged him. And I didn't know what to do. I had to get the manager to lie to him and say the system's not working.
Oh, nice.
So, like, it doesn't make any, especially on like a cartridge level, where I guess the intended consequence is like if you play a dumped game, your console is banned, but it's retaliatory for the original game as well. So this would be no different than my Blu-ray player getting banned because I put in a DVD that someone else ripped. Like it just doesn't make any sense, except to just be overly punishing.
By the way, you do you know what actually happens to Blu-ray players? There is actually a blackout system for Blu-ray. Do you know about this?
Yeah, because I know they can the discs can connect to the internet.
Okay,
I don't know the specifics.
So they built into Blu-ray a system where, and actually this isn't just Blu-ray. As I understand it, this is all of HDCP. That's high definition content protection, in case anybody that doesn't know that. HDCP has this system built in, and it was actually built primarily for Blu-ray players, though eventually it obviously went into other hardware. Basically anything that can decode the signal has a unique key, and it's that key is part of how it does its decoding. So what's really screwed up is if it turns out that any particular piece of hardware is ever hacked so that it can be used for high quality, perfect rips of any content, and whatever organization finds out about this, they ban that piece of hardware universally, everywhere. So anyone who has that piece of hardware, it effectively stops working. And as I understand it, I could have this wrong. I believe it's only for anything that comes after that point. So, like if you put in a movie from 10 years ago and the hardware only got banned in the last, let's say, 2 years, that's fine. It'll work. But anything that came out like, you know, a year and 9 months ago, like, that will have the code that basically disables that piece of hardware, or excludes that piece of hardware, however it works. So yeah, if you have a Blu-ray player that happens to be discovered as a weak point, that Blu-ray player would just basically stop being usable, for anything new at least. And just imagine how lucky it is that this never happened to, let's say, the PlayStation 4. Though, as I understand, I think the PlayStation 4 had an updatable code, where most Blu-ray players don't. Regardless, this is a really screwed up system that I kept waiting. Like, I was hoping some hacking group would just be like, yeah, we figured out how to do this, and we hacked like 37 of the top selling Blu-ray players. I wanted to see that happen because at some point, like, the HDMI organization or whoever it is would have had to just say, you know what, never mind, system's washed. Like, let's just give this up, and we'll try again in the next generation. But yeah, so far as I'm aware, only a few pieces of like nascent hardware that nobody really owned have ever been banned. But anyway, that's an aside.
Yeah, I mean, I know I've got my HDMI splitter here that is definitely only supposed to be used for splitting purposes and not for stripping DRM or anything like that. As far as I know, it still works. I did plug a Roku stick into it a couple weeks ago because I needed to get screenshots for a Plex article, and it still worked. So, love to see it.
That is actually exactly why I bought the splitter that I have. Because of all things, Stadia was HDCP encoded, and so
I think Chromecast in general, right? Like, they just won't display anything.
I don't think so, but maybe. I never figured that out for sure, but I mean, it would make sense if everything else on Chromecast was encrypted, but the fact that Stadia made basically no sense. But yeah, all I had to do was feed it through the splitter, and look at that, the DRM just goes away.
Yeah, I had to do that for my original Switch, so I could, play it on my computer and stream it if I wanted to. It would show nothing over just a straight HDMI connection, like total black screen.
Yep, exactly. Anyway,
said, Nintendo causes people to pirate their own games. They're the reason people pirate Nintendo ROMs and emulate. Funny how it wasn't as bad during the Wii era. I mean, people would do it anyway. Like, just a certain subset of people would do that. Like, people are. I've seen in the modern era, a lot of people are very shameless about. I am buying a Steam Deck to play my emulated Switch games. There's a lot of people who would do it anyway, but yes, I'm 100% certain that if Nintendo put in an actual effort to make all their games more easily accessible at fair prices, it would not be as much of a problem.
Yeah, I think back to just to pull a fairly famous example, the PSP was notorious for the fact that if you hacked the battery in a very specific way, and eventually they changed the battery so you couldn't do this, but for some reason, if you hacked the batteries, you could basically put in any purchased game, any legitimate purchased game, and somewhere in those games was like a decryption key, and then you could just use a memory card with any other game on it, load up those games, no big deal. Like, basically you just need to buy one single game, and after that you could play anything you wanted. And I have in fact tried this. It worked fantastically. So yeah, it's a real thing. Um, People are going to pirate. It is what it is. I don't know that you're necessarily going to beat a whole lot of people by making the you're not going to beat a lot of people by making piracy more difficult. You're not going to stop them from pirating if you implement systems like this. They're still going to do it. All you're kind of doing is really hurting the users that actually are legitimate, or at least mostly legitimate. So, yeah, I don't see this as a win for Nintendo in any particular way, except, again, they're kind of beating down the aftermarket purchase or sale. Because as people learn about this, let's be honest, no one's going to want to buy used games.
Yeah.
Oh,
Which again,
wow. I just thought about it too. Game stores that buy and sell used games, imagine what they're going to be doing. Like, they're going to test games because they usually do. And so they're going to be testing games left and right. And I don't think a lot of people are going to be dumping games per se, but imagine someone coming in selling you a game and you're like, okay, I'll pop it in, test it real quick. Oh, look, got the Switch banned. And you're going to be, what are you going to do? Obviously you can call you can call up customer service once or twice over this, but eventually they're just going to be like, hey, we've unbanned our limit for you. Like, we're just not going to do it anymore.
Yeah, and that was one of the top comments on this article at Nintendo Life was someone asking, like, I was under the impression Nintendo couldn't unban a Switch 2. So how does this work? So yeah, I don't know. Again, this is the same thing as I've had a lot of interactions with people over this with online ads, where there's just some people who are so absolutely militant about not just ad block, but like the entire concept of like ever paying for anything, and it gets really depressing. Where I've had because sometimes I like to mess with them. I'll be honest. So I have had so many loops with people, especially when YouTube started cracking down on ad blockers like a year ago, 2 years ago, where I would be like, so there'd be like a chain of people being like, this sucks. I'm not paying for YouTube Premium. It's too expensive. And then I'd be like, well, guess what? There's a free alternative to not paying for YouTube Premium. It's ads. And like, oh, there's too many ads. It's like, well, there's YouTube. There's this cool thing called YouTube Premium. And it just goes in a circle. And it just gets to the point where people don't want to spend money and they don't want to watch ads, which I fully understand both things, but it gets a little depressing if you're the kind of person who needs to eat from that. So yeah, I guess that's all for now. Just Nintendo continuing to amaze, and I'm not in any rush whatsoever to get a Switch 2.
Well, I'm still not interested in getting a Switch 2 anyway. But this is, as far as I'm concerned, one of those steps closer to just me say, like, I kind of almost feel an obligation to tell people, whatever you do, don't buy Nintendo. Like, just don't. The company is overstepping in pretty much every conceivable way. And honestly, I'm kind of wondering if this will end up being a thing that gets Nintendo sued. Like, mega sued. Not in a pleasant kind of way. And I don't think it's going to happen a lot. I don't think people are going to be dumping carts with any frequency, and it's like not going to turn into just a massive number of Switch 2s getting banned. But I do think there's going to be enough of it happening that this just keeps making news. And that's...
I don't have to worry about this with my lovely Nintendo 3DS. Not an issue.
True fact.
I haven't even hacked this yet. Everyone says, because you can't actually buy digital games on this anymore. So I should hack it. I just haven't got around to it yet. So this is still a fully legitimate legal console with digital games on it that I paid money for. Um,
I know I did. Oh wait, I was using a game cart with a memory card slot in it for, I think it was a Game
yeah,
Boy Advance.
yeah,
Might
I
have
had
that
one of
wrong.
those for
Or
my
sorry, it
for
was a
my
DS. It was a DS.
yeah. I had one of those with my DSi. It was very, very cool.
Maybe I had a DSi.
Um,
Whatever, it doesn't matter. But
yeah.
um,
Especially nice having one being like 15 and not really having a job or a way to get a job, because then I didn't have to beg people to buy video games for me.
indeed.
Oh, okay.
So
So speaking of video games,
yes,
um,
Cyberpunk
Cyberpunk,
2077. I'm just going to talk over you on this. Cyberpunk 2077 is coming to Mac. It actually came to Mac. It hit
yes,
today.
it's already out.
Yes. So today was the launch day, and I was hoping to see some reviews or articles about how it performed. I haven't yet. I assume they're probably out there, but I just haven't seen them. Anyway, this I feel like wouldn't really be that notable outside of woo, we got the 1 or 2 games of the year on a Mac.
Yep. This is the Mac game this year, guys. Live it up.
But I feel like this one is a little unique for the fact that Cyberpunk 2077 is famously the graphics nightmare for most systems. At least if you set the settings fairly high. When it first launched, obviously you had to have pretty high specs for a PC at the time, if you wanted it to look even remotely good. If you had the latest console generation, you were generally okay, though, as I understand it, Xbox Series S did not ever really do that well with it, but it was okay. If you had a Series X or if you had a PS5, you were doing okay, but it was definitely still console settings. Like, they were not what a PC could pull off, but they were still okay. If you had the previous generation consoles, they basically barely ran it. And even running it, the graphics were just at the lowest conceivable settings. They looked horrible. And then, of course, there was Stadia, which, amusingly, it didn't run it at the highest settings, but it ran it fairly high and really well. And with way fewer crashes than the PC version got, which is still hilarious to me. Obviously, as time went by, they increased, or they optimized it a lot. They improved so much of the code so that it ran better on older stuff and weaker hardware. But it never really got like to the point of, hey, my computer from 2016 with mediocre graphics can run it. That never happened. It was still a pretty demanding game. And here it is hitting max, going all the way back to the M1 and having a base RAM requirement of 16 gigabyte. Or rather, the system has to be a 16 gig system, not one of the 8 gig models. So
Yeah, so sucks to suck if you bought one of those M1 iMacs.
yeah.
Because those were only 8 gigs, I think.
Or
Or 12.
Wasn't the did they do 16 gig Mac minis at the beginning? I want to say they did, but I'm not totally sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because my M1 Mac Mini, which has now gone to a new home, farewell, was 16 gigs.
Okay.
So it was just for whatever reason, it was just the iMac that they only ever sold with the base M1 with the base 8 gigs of memory. Very weird.
Yeah, that was kind of a jerk move. They never should have made that. But Honestly, I still maintain they probably never really should have pushed the 8 gig model. Like, making it is okay for the there are customers where that makes sense and they don't need to spend even $1 extra. Fine. But for the vast majority of people, they really should have just made it very clear, like, you need to get the 16 gig. But
Well,
that's
it's worse when it's in the computer, when it's like integrated into this monitor that could easily last
yeah,
like 10 more years than the hardware in it.
yeah. So anyway, this is a demanding game, and it's running on what is now 5-year-old hardware or thereabouts. And by all accounts, it seems like it should do pretty well. So Macworld covered this with a little bit more detail and basically said the way it's going to work is when you load up the game, it's going to come with a set of presets basically for every model of Mac that there was, or at least based on whatever its specs are. So if you've only got 16 gigs of RAM, it accounts for that by running at a certain, I'm assuming certain detail level and draw distance and whatever else. If it's a higher spec or like a newer model or higher like core counts, whatever like that, it can account for that or adjust for that. If it's a newer Mac, it can run at higher resolutions, so on and so forth. Notably, they did call out that ray tracing is never on unless you turn it on. You have to manually turn that on, no matter what model you have. I was a little surprised to see that, but I don't know. It kind of makes a little sense, I think. And notably, only the M3 and M4 Macs have the ray tracing capabilities. Ray tracing existed on older chips, but it wasn't really up to snuff.
Yeah, at some point, Apple redid a lot of their graphics architecture. I assume it's probably related to that, if not just more horsepower.
Yeah. And I
Um,
even remember like the event where they announced ray tracing was a big deal for the M3, and that was at the time. I remember a lot of people saying, okay, so unless Cyberpunk 2077 comes to this Mac, no one's ever going to see this used. And here we are. Coincidentally, 2 years later, it's going to get used by some number of people.
I mean, it might have already been used in that Assassin's Creed game,
Yeah, probably was.
and maybe Control. I don't know. I haven't played
Control, no,
the
not a
yearly Mac
chance.
games.
There's no way. Control there could not possibly have ray tracing, at least not any good amount of ray tracing. It wasn't that graphically intensive a game. I don't know why everyone keeps talking about it like it was.
I think it. I want to say at least the because there was the original game and then there was like
The
an
remaster.
Ultimate Edition later. Yeah, I think that had more stuff in it, but I
Okay,
don't know the
maybe.
details.
All right, I'll take your word for it. As you say, you don't know details. So I also just feel the need to point this out because this is so dumb, but it's such an Apple problem right now. If you get the app, or if you get Cyberpunk 2077 from the Mac App Store, it's 159 gigs. If you get it anywhere else, it's 92. So just because you get 67 extra gigabytes if you get it off the Mac App Store, which the only way this makes sense to me is if it's one of those situations like other Mac apps where they had to include extra resources all in one bundle and everyone just has to get that bundle, whereas with other stores they're shipping like different sets of assets. I don't know if that's the case. Whether it is or not, this is insanity to me. This is something like there is no better proof Apple has to fix their store. Like, this is not okay.
Well, the chart image in the tiny text says the Mac App Store version has all voiceovers in the download. So I don't, but I don't know why that would be different for, unless they're talking about like localization, like you're downloading all the voice lines for like every conceivable language.
Okay, and maybe that's true. Um, but yeah, I don't think that I don't buy that there's a justification for this. No matter what, no matter what explanation is given, it just reaffirms the point that Apple has to fix their stores. That because any version of an explanation keeps coming back to this is a problem because of Apple, not a problem because of anything else. Like, the developers obviously did whatever they needed to do to get the game down to 92 gigs everywhere else. But Apple doesn't give them a way to do that, therefore 67 extra gigabytes just cuz. Like,
Well, and
that's a
especially
problem.
on Macs, that's more than half of your 256 gigabyte base model.
Right.
So this is like Call of Duty on every gaming PC.
Yeah.
Whoops, we're gonna use half your storage just for funsies.
Yeah, and when you factor in how large the OS is and uh you know, really just adding a handful of other apps plus all the junk that comes pre-installed. And by junk I really just mean Apple's own like Office apps and stuff like that. But when you add it all up, like that that gives you so little space. So all told, I like seeing that they're doing this. I think it's great that we have we kind of have that perfect test case that there is in fact an app coming to Mac that that a lot of people certainly will look at and say, "Ooh, hey, we like seeing that's there." My problem with this is it's a 5-year-old game. It's a 5-year-old game that anyone by now who wanted to play it would have probably played on console or on a PC or even on Stadia. Or I don't know, maybe I don't know if you could play it on Luna or any of the other game streaming services. I assume you could have played it on GeForce Now.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you can play it on all these different places, by now you probably played it. Like, how many people are gonna rush out and get a Mac version of a 5-year-old game that honestly doesn't have a ton of replay value? Like, don't get me wrong, I'd like to replay it like once or twice, but I'm not inclined to like I it's not the type of game that you're gonna sit down and like super get into like for a long time and play through every single thing multiple times. It's the kind of narrative story that you're going to play through once, then maybe a couple more times at like higher difficulties or trying to get different endings. Maybe you'll get super into that and try to get each of the different, I think it was 8 endings. Might have that wrong. But that's kind of it. Like I don't know. I'm not sure I see the it,
I
it
mean, yeah, it's the same story as, kind of every Switch 2 port right now. And I mean, really anytime a game gets a port a couple years after it comes out is like you're mostly just capturing the people who don't have another thing to play the game on. And I guess in Cyberpunk's case, just kind of future proofing. Like, now they have a Mac game that will stay there as long as Apple allows this architecture of
yeah.
software to keep working. So they have 5 years. But it's good. I might try this later because I do own Cyberpunk on Steam, just not like all the DLCs and stuff. But
I think there was only
yeah,
one.
I'd prefer more games, please.
Yeah, and man, I think it just bears saying it is a 5-year-old game, and they're going to be charging $83 for it. Guys, 5 years old. I look, I get it. CD Projekt Red put, I'm sure, a good amount of effort into this. I'm sure, know that they're not going to get a ton of sales, so you kind of have to account for that somewhere. But holy crap, 83
I mean,
bucks.
that's just the Mac App Store. Like everything on there, like that is where they will bleed you dry for daring to buy a Mac. Um,
Well,
you can just wait for the next Steam sale. This is gonna be 5-year-old game pricing there. So just get it there. Yeah, as much as I wish, the Mac App Store, I wish the Mac App Store was a better option because I don't necessarily want like a launcher in the way of every game I play. Um, Especially one as slow performing on Mac as Steam. But it's far more economical and not restricted purely to Mac. Uh,
it,
and GOG is the same way. You buy it on there, you can play it on your Windows PCs too.
I just feel the need to point this out just for laughs. On GOG right now, which, we're talking the wonderfully DRM free service or seller. It technically retails for $80, but is on sale for 53% off. So it's a whopping $37.59. There is not only no reason to get this on the Mac App Store, you're actively incentivized not to, both by price and by download size.
Yeah, and this has like all the extra stuff that I don't know if they have like a way of distributing it through the App Store. Like you get the soundtrack and the wallpapers and other digital stuff.
It's a good point. I'm checking the App Store right now. I agree. I don't think it's on there, but let's see. Just
I do like that they
scrolling
have
down.
a review system requirements before purchasing thing in like really, really high letters. Like, please don't get this if you have a bad Mac.
Yeah. Okay. I put this on screen, but it's not worth switching. It's not worth switching views just for this. Yeah, I don't see anything about the other stuff, so it's probably not there, though. It is always possible that it's like included in the download somewhere.
Yeah.
Or maybe like once you install it, it downloads from some other server where you could get it. Whatever the case. Yeah, that's
Just buy it on Steam or GOG or
yeah,
Epic.
literally anywhere but the Mac App Store. And maybe Apple will learn to fix yet another one of its massive problems with the Mac App Store. Anyways, so speaking of massive problems, HMD has one.
Yeah, so HMD Global, which is the company that is mostly selling Nokia branded phones, but also makes some devices with their own name, like the Barbie phone and a couple other more recent devices. They've tried to like tamper off on the Nokia brand, but that company has announced that it is scaling back its operations in the United States. And seems to have stopped selling both HMD and Nokia devices here entirely. And they said that they told The Verge this was because of a quote challenging geopolitical and economic environment, end quote, which probably means tariffs. Well, taxes are tariffs are taxes. And I don't think anything of value was lost, unfortunately. Um, I I reviewed some Nokia phones when I worked at Android Police and XDA, which was back when they were like pretty new. And at the time, I thought overall they were fine. They were basically just a Pixel-like phone, but at more price points and more variations in hardware, and s slightly slower Android updates, but not to the point of it being like a real issue. I know there were a couple models early on that did have weird long delays in updates, but for the most part, it was like, yeah, if you want a cheap stock Android thing, like it was, in the same class as Motorola back then, but maybe a little bit better because Motorola had started going downhill. But over time, they just started piling on phones. Like they would, again, the Motorola problem. They just made a phone for every price point, like every increment of $20 from like $100 to 500, and it got ridiculous. And they really started lagging behind in software support. And in the last couple years, I've really seen from them just, uh, I guess I would describe it as greenwashing, where they've made a couple phones now where they make such a big deal about them being repairable. Like you can replace the screen, battery, all that fun stuff, which is great. But the entire time, I think the longest support cycle they've had is 2 or 3 years on their phones. So by the time you need to replace something, barring accidents like, whoops, I dropped my phone on the floor and it shattered, the phone that I bought 6 months ago. By the time you're repairing parts that are getting worn down, the phone is no longer worth repairing because it has like a year or 6 months of security updates left. And I think at some point I don't know if they ever did open bootloader or like unlockable bootloaders, but they definitely haven't for the last couple of years. So stuff like, Lineage OS wasn't even really an option. So I haven't really seen what the point in their phones have been for the last couple of years. I think whether or not they were in the US, your options for buying a budget phone in the US were get whatever the latest Samsung A50 series phone is, or get a Pixel A phone, and that's it. That's your options. Or, find, if you're if you're not looking at Android specifically, go get like a refurb iPhone, something that's like 2 or 3 gens old, because that's still going to get updates for a couple more years. So I don't think anything of value was lost here. I'd feel worse if they actually tried with extended software support, but I never saw that from them. So, I wish there was more competition in the US, but they were not competition in my eyes.
Uh, well, I'll certainly agree, but also disagree to an extent. I think that they were actually competition, but they were competition for a specific type of customer, which was specifically the I don't care what it costs, I don't care what it is, I don't really care much of anything about it. What's the nearest thing to me that is within the budget that I say? So if somebody says I have $180, they're going to literally look until they find a phone that is $180 or less. And as long as the HMD phone is the one that is literally the first that they find, that's the one that they're probably going to buy. And in that sense, HMD was filling a niche, and they were a competitor. They were just a really bad one. You know what? Actually, that's not fair. They weren't a bad competitor. A bad competitor would be, I don't know that I should call them out by name, but I'm just gonna say Blue, not the color, or sorry, not the company Blue that made the Yeti microphones, but the company Blue, BLU, that was they made a ton of really bargain basement Android phones for a long time, and actually, we used to review them a lot on Android Police before some stuff happened, and they were kind of called out for doing some shady stuff with their ROMs, and also I think having some like customer service issues or something. Anyway, uh, Nokia was better than, or sorry, HMD was better than that. They put out generally okay firmware updates, and you could tell they were at least trying to be sort of honorable members of the market. But beyond that, yeah, they were just like the epitome of an also ran. It was just basically, hey, if you choose to buy us, yeah, nice, cool. If you don't, yeah, we're really not going to try to do anything to get you to buy us. And that was kind of where HMD landed. Like they had nothing to differentiate them outside of like the the partnership deals, the Barbie phone, and evidently the Heineken boring phone. Which okay, so yeah, I just seen. I agree. I don't think anything was lost by losing them. Not really. Uh, but at the same time, I also, I guess, sort of sad to see him go, just because I think the market needed somebody that was like this. It would have just been nice if they were also like this but better. If
I
that
would
makes
have
sense.
I would love to be a fly on the wall at their meeting. I really want to know, did anyone buy the Barbie phone? Because they did so much marketing and advertising for the thing that came out like a year after the movie. Like it just completely
Yeah.
missed that entire hype. Like obviously, like Barbie is ephemeral; it's not going away. But they kind of missed the elevated moment that probably prompted that phone's creation. Um,
Yeah, I agree. Well, we talked about it on stream at the time. I'm just absolutely baffled why they would have even tried shipping it so late. Like it would have been one thing if they were say 4 months late. There was still some recognition and hype, and 4 months after the theatrical release was kind of not too long after the streaming release. It would have made sense at that time. But then to do it, I thought it was more than a year after the release, but maybe it was about a year. At that stage, nah, it's too late. Like no one cares unless they made a Barbie 2, which actually I think is a thing on this slate, but yeah, they screwed up on this. Um with all that said, I think it also highlights something pretty obvious in the fact that this is yet another company that's looking at the current political climate and the cost that comes with that, and basically saying, you know what, peace out, we're done with the US. And yeah, that just means that the companies that are still here are getting more of the market with that while having to do less to get it. That's bad. That is just pure bad for us.
yeah, I mean that's what I would do too. Americans suck. Um, so okay, moving on to a quick thing about Plex. I know we talked about this before, but Plex started rolling out an updated mobile app a couple months ago, and it is rolled out to I think the Apple TV, but not any other smart TV platforms. I'm not entirely sure. I know it hasn't rolled out on Roku, but the new design, it's like their cross-platform code base, so it's their one. I think it's like React framework. But basically, like they had individual apps for every platform Plex is on, and Plex is on like 500 million things, so that was kind of a problem. So they made a new code base to unify everything, which I think is fine. But they did the same thing that almost every tech company does at this point. where they hit about 80% feature parity and they ship it, and inevitably make a bunch of people mad who are in the 20% usage. And one of those was that they removed support for pictures, for uploading pictures through the Plex app and music playback, because they already have Plex amp for music as a separate app. And they made a separate app for photos. They were like, okay, if you want that, just download the other one. Not big deal. They said like very few Plex users use music or photos in the main app, which I have no problem believing. I don't see a lot of people using Plex for music, even though it's good for that. Um, which is fine and dandy on desktop and mobile, but on TV there is no Plex amp. So when they started rolling this out to TV platforms, which I don't know which ones got it, like it's in the beta preview for Roku is where it's mostly being tested right now. I think Apple TV already got the new app because it's, shared with iOS infrastructure. I don't know about other platforms, but that was kind of a big deal. It's like, oh, I was able to listen to my Plex music on my TV, and now I can't. And there's no Plex amp app to fix that. So that seemed like something that they should have figured out before trying to get people to use the new app. But what do I know? So what they've said is that the new app for Plex for Roku, which is still in the preview stage, they are adding back music and photos to that. So fix that problem. Good to go. And they're also bringing it back to the updated app on all other platforms. So it'll come back to the main app on phones and tablets and desktop. And it was already, I think it was already in the desktop web app still. But yeah, so you can keep using PlexAmp if you want, but that will eventually come back to the main app. And I guess the logic there is like they needed to get it on TV, and I guess they didn't want to do a separate app for TV or something. And if they're having to integrate all this into the shared code base, then wouldn't really be that much work to bring it to everything else. So yeah, so that's one less thing to panic about. If you get the new Plex update on your TV, it should have I don't know if I don't know if they guarantee that this would be ready before they roll out the update is the thing. They're not explicitly saying it here, which leads me to believe the answer is no. But yeah, we'll see. Again, I understand why tech companies do this, and it's because somewhere in the chain there is a product manager that's like, no, we absolutely need this done in Q2 or whatever. But like it doesn't go well every time. it doesn't. They keep doing this, and every time it happens, they bleed like their most dedicated users and make everyone sad and kind of make everyone also hesitant to update anything.
Yeah.
Like I grew up around family members who were like, I will never update anything because something always breaks. And so when I went to my family's house a couple months ago, and my sister was like, why is my phone acting weird? And I check, and it's like 4 iOS versions behind. It's like, I think I found the problem.
Yep. And I'm
So when you visit your family next, over the holidays or whatever, be sure to update all their devices and don't tell them.
oh, that's dangerous too.
As long as they're not on a Mac, because then they won't get to use their old apps anymore.
Yeah. So anyway, look, I'll even confirm I'm kind of in the camp as someone who's now looking at Plex and thinking, I don't know if I want to stay on this for indefinitely. I like Plex, I do. I've liked Plex for a long time. And technically I have no reason to leave it. I've we discussed at relative length um basically why a lot of people, myself included, are kind of concerned about the direction Plex is likely to take in the next, say, 2 years, if not less. Especially since they kind of did basically a big, hey, lifetime is about to get way more expensive, so if you want it, buy it now. And I did not, which leaves me thinking, yeah, I might want to look at alternatives at some point. So that whole situation has had me, at least in the back of my mind, thinking, wonder if Jellyfin is ready. Like, would this do what I want? I kind of should probably check it out and figure that out. And I haven't messed with it yet, but I'm at some point, once I have the million other projects that I'm working on, once I've got a little bit of breathing room, I totally am going to start looking into Jellyfin because, look, I like Plex, like I said, but I kind of just suspect one of these days Plex is going to do something that forces me off of it. And when I see them making decisions like this, when things like this are happening, because frankly, they were so disorganized and so tuned out of how people use the software, and I assume so caught up in their specific business goals, all of those things kind of overshadowed the usability situation that everybody liked about Plex, and it's obviously making it worse. And we lost a Corbin for reasons. Hey, welcome back.
Sorry, Meat keeps doing this thing where it's like, oh, what if I fuck up your audio real bad just for fun?
Ah, joy.
So refresh fixes it. So
That
I'm
makes
just gonna
sense.
do that.
So yeah, when all's said and done, I don't want to leave Plex, but at the same time, I feel like I should just be preparing for that. Like I suspect it is an inevitability, and things like this just sort of raise red flags about, it's eventually going to happen. I don't know when. I don't know what thing is going to break, but something is going to break, and maybe it'll be by accident. Maybe it's going to be something that they backtrack on. Maybe it's a choice and they're never going to backtrack. I don't know, but I think it's going to happen eventually, and when it does, I need to be ready.
Yeah, they're being pretty silly. I don't think they're in full like we are ruining our product as quickly as possible for capitalism. They're just that they are making a lot of boneheaded decisions in quick succession.
Mm-hmm.
So they have improved the new app a lot since they rolled it out. Like now it's probably in the stage where it should have been when they first rolled it out. So it's not staying broken, but the fact that they were willing to let that out in its initial state was not great.
Mm-hmm.
And we have actually moved on from talking about Cyberpunk. I'm not bringing that back up.
Yeah.
So, speaking of phones, Google has announced its Pixel 10 launch event day. So, this year's big Pixel event will be August 20th. And the only details we have are that it will be the event itself will be in New York City that day, and they will show off, quote, the latest on our Pixel phones, watches, buds, and more. That's all we have.
Yes. So, I mean, that's to be fair, that's reasonably informative. I mean, it's better than, or at least it's detailing that we can expect to see, of course, the things that we already knew we could expect to see, the phones and watches. And it mentions the buds, which I don't think anyone really knew was going to happen, but now we know for sure. So that's good for people who are really into the Pixel Buds. Um, I'm curious what the "and more" is going to mean, because I'm really worried that what the "and more" is going to mean is basically, hey, we're done with the hardware, let's talk about AI. It's also possible that the "and more" is going to get into Nest products. It could get into speakers, smart displays. It could get into other hardware. Maybe this is the event where, well, it's made by Google, so they're probably not going to get into the XR headset, but you never know. Technically, it's a possibility. Um,
Yep, I did say to our reviews person, uh, if there's a Android VR headset, I would like first dibs. So I'm sure they will honor the dibs,
yes.
but I need Google to release the headset first. Which still waiting on that.
Um,
Or I guess Samsung, whoever's in charge of whatever.
if you
Give
don't
me a
get
free headset.
if you don't
Is
get
what I'm getting
dibs
to.
on it for whatever reason, I'm putting my hat in the ring for second dibs.
Okay.
Yes, with the site that I do not work for.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, it's fine. You can just borrow it.
so
Uh,
yeah, I so far we've heard rumors about the Pixel 10, um, the regular, the Pro, and Pro XL also, and the Fold. Um, so far the rumors are not particularly exceptional. They're not really promising the most interesting upgrade, but there are things that I'm personally interested in, but they're not, I think, necessarily super exciting or necessarily even worth it. So if things go the way that I think they're going to, I'm probably just going to wait it out until it's time to do a trade in that is ridiculous and is basically going to give me a free upgrade, or nearly free upgrade. That's pretty much what I'm shooting for. Um, if like right now, I have no particular goals with the watch, though. If they do come out with, again, a good trade-in deal, same story. I'll happily trade in my Pixel Watch 3 for a Pixel Watch 4. And I have no interest in the buds. I don't think there's anything that Google can do that's going to get me interested in the buds, at all. I genuinely can't think of anything that's going to motivate me to get, especially their cheaper line, but even the more expensive ones.
yeah, I have no thoughts whatsoever.
Hey, that's what we've been saying about you. Did you hear us talking?
Maybe.
Um, so yeah, I don't know. This obviously after this event we will be talking about it. It will be landing coincidentally on a Wednesday, so we will talk about it not too long after it happens. I think that is about all there is to say about it for now.
Yep.
All right.
So, last thing, kind of interesting. Although this is like most of the news cycle in the past few months, it's something that I guess is technically noteworthy, but not at all surprising. Which is that Google is, I guess, starting to combine ChromeOS and Android into a single platform. And there's not really a lot of details beyond that. We don't know what platform means. Like, there, we've seen reports. I don't know how far along they are, but there have been a lot of discussions about Chrome OS switching to Android's flavor of the Linux kernel, stuff like that. Obviously, they share a lot of common infrastructure with the Google Play Services stack, like Play Store, all those Google apps, because the Android VM is so crucial to Chromebooks now. So not really surprising, and I think really, and also all the work that's been going into Chrome for Android on large screens, like they're giving it a more desktop like interface, which would make sense if they need to swap the underlying platform and keep the user experience roughly the same. Um, so it makes sense from a technical standpoint where Chromebooks are essentially already Android laptops. Like they've been on that course for the last 8 years. Like Google has deprioritized the web part quite a bit, and in favor of just running Android apps to fill in all the functionality gaps, and then the Linux container on top of that. So they've been putting the pieces in place for this for a while, but I guess before now they never outright said it. Um, so yeah, I don't think this really changes anything. I guess the only question is, will they get Chrome for Android on Chromebooks to 100% feature parity with the current version, which means extension support? We're still waiting for that. I don't think that means that extensions come to Chrome for Android for all devices. I don't think that's happening. They can very easily just gate that to whatever the Chromebooks are running. And I guess the other part of this is, if I'm gonna put I have a hat on already, but if I put a tinfoil hat over my existing hat, this is probably a way for the DOJ to not pull ChromeOS away from Google, because if they end up if they go to Google and say you have to sell Chrome, this is a monopoly, which it is, then I don't see how they do that and just kind of ignore the operating system they make that only runs that browser and has that browser's branding and is heavily used in the United States education system. And if they don't look at that, then that also puts Google in the place of like, shit, we made an operating system that only runs an app we don't own anymore. So making Chrome OS into big Android sidesteps that problem entirely, because then it's just an Android tablet, and you say we can keep Android, so this is Android now. Checkmate, liberals. And so
Okay, so that's interesting. I really hadn't put a lot of thought into that angle on it, but you're not wrong. I think there is some credibility to the idea that they basically just eliminate an operating system and then they can kind of come back and say, well, we have just the one operating system. It's our operating system, and you can't take away everything from us. And since there's only one, you can't split us up or split it up. And then Chrome OS effectively just becomes a flavor of Android. So yeah, that is an interesting take, and it certainly could work. I'm going to go with the other cynical version of this, which is, I think that if they merge these two, ultimately, it gives them the excuse to say, cool, we don't need to have as many developers employed working on Chrome OS. So see ya. We get to get a stock boost as we wipe out yet another, I don't know, 400 developers or something. If there's 400 developers working on Chrome OS, I'd be shocked. And hello, Carson. How's it going? Fuchsia should have been in the back pocket OS to solve not owning Android and Chrome OS. Yeah. The thing is, they would have had to use Fuchsia somewhere. And I don't know that they ever got it far enough along that was realistic.
I mean, it just kind of turned into like Android is good enough. Like that's Like it's fine. This is not something I want to use. Like every time I use a Chromebook and I have to use Android apps on there, they always feel weird. So actually, do you want to say something else really quick? Because I'm about to go into mega tangent.
um, well, seeing as I think you still had a hard out for 10 minutes from now. Is that
Not
correct?
anymore.
Oh, okay.
But I'm still like it's not like a super long rant.
Okay.
Um,
I just go for it. Cook, sir.
okay.
Cook.
So I saw a couple questions that got brought up in the wake of this news. Number one is what happens to ChromeOS Flex, which is the version of ChromeOS that Google bought for running basically that for turning like PCs into Chromebooks, mostly for schools and other organizations, because that doesn't run Android apps right now. And I would assume that that doesn't go anywhere, but it still doesn't run Android apps. And you may be wondering, wow, wouldn't that be weird if it's based on Android but doesn't run Android apps? And the problem is that it's just based around how Google handles the Play Store. So every Chromebook right now is one of several hardware platforms that Google makes. And those are the things that they certify as if it was an Android device. Like if you have the Google Play Store developer console thing, you can go in there and in their big list of devices with like, alongside like S25 Plus or Pixel 9, there's like uh Chromebook Maple, and that's like a model of Chromebook that 5 OEMs built laptops around. And that's the thing that they certify for the Play Store and everything. And that's why Chrome OS Flex can't run Android apps because they're not a device like that. It's not a fixed platform. You can install that on anything. So unless they change that rule in the Play Store, I think those will continue just not running Android apps. It'll still have like they'll have like whatever Android stuff is required to run Chrome, but probably not beyond that. That would be my assumption. They could do it if they wanted to. Like I was running Android x86 on PCs a decade ago that had the Google Play Store, but Google doesn't officially want you to do that. Um, and the other thing I saw brought up a lot is my Winter Soldier activation phrase, which is this will finally make developers build Android apps for large screens. No, I'm so I when I worked at Android Police and later XDA, I will eventually write a blog post about this when I have uh, more mental health bandwidth. Is how many times Google suddenly cared about Android on tablets or tablet-like things, and there was a big wave of this is it, guys. We're finally going to get Android apps that look great and work great on large devices. Never happens. We went through this with Android Honeycomb, uh, arguably the Nexus 7, even though that was a 7-inch tablet, so phone apps could run on it and not look that weird. That time, Google made a Chrome OS tablet. I think that was the Pixel Slate. That whenever Google partnered with Samsung on their first foldable phones, and there was that like Android 12L release, and Google trying to make apps that work better on foldables. Um, and in a few of those waves, Google does improve their own apps. Not everyone. Like I remember at one point I was in a meeting with a Google person and they were talking about Android on large screens or the Play Store, and I was like, "Are you guys gonna fix when I open the Play Store on my Android tablet?" And it's like hilariously, or I think I opened the Google Home app where like it was just the phone screen stretched out and it looked ridiculous, and they were like, "Yeah, we're working on that."
No, you are.
And sometimes yeah, I mean, they have improved a couple of their apps over the last like 5 years. Like the Play Store on a Chromebook now is not like absurdly designed, but third-party developers, that Google still doesn't really care all that much, and third-party developers also don't, because if you're TikTok and 90% of your users are phones, you're not going to care about other platforms that much. Like it keeps coming back to the problem of the base Android experience is a phone-shaped device with a touchscreen. So when you go beyond that to a tablet that might even, still has a touchscreen, but it's a different form factor, a lot of apps don't look right, and they don't work right. And then Chromebooks are a step beyond that, because not only is it on a large screen, but you are using a keyboard and mouse as the primary input device. A lot of them still have touch screens, but you're mostly using keyboard and mouse or trackpad. And so it's even worse. You're now two steps removed from the sort of experience these apps are built for. So I don't think this will change anything with the app situation, because if developers already don't care about Chromebooks, then them switching to be slightly more Android-like doesn't really change anything. Again, this is all like I think if Google wanted to, they could do this transition and not a single, like, most people would not notice. Because ChromeOS at this point is the Chrome browser, the core system UI and settings, like the taskbar and the settings app, and the Linux container, and that's it. So if they get the shell parts ported over in a similar fashion, some people might not even notice that anything happened. Or maybe they'll just only do this on new Chromebooks. Maybe they'll do that. Because an in-place upgrade for switching operating systems might be a little dicey.
Yeah, especially given some of the old hardware that they've used, though a lot of those just simply might not be eligible for updates. Yeah, I get your point. I do wonder, are they, just from a technical perspective, how realistic is it that they upgrade or change the underlying OS and end up finding themselves in a position where it's like, oh, there's all this custom work that we did, and at one point or another, developers maybe built to support that, or made sure stuff worked, and then when we upgrade or change to Android, some of these things won't. And I think about this is just a arbitrary pick, but I remember them talking about how much trouble it was to get audio working in Linux containers. And man, at least hearing the way they tell it, that was a massive undertaking. Should it have been? Probably not. I don't know enough about it, so I can't judge, but I've heard other people say that it shouldn't have been such a big deal. But I kind of wonder if they have to reinvent that wheel if they try to replace the underlying OS with Android. Because at that point, are they going to then have the same problems but with a different underlying OS that they then have to re-implement all that stuff, presumably more or less from scratch? If that's the case,
well, we've seen them start doing that with that Linux terminal app that's hidden in newer Android releases. So I'm sure they will have to reinvent some of the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
So I also find myself wondering, why didn't they just start this project a decade ago? I mean, the Verge article makes obviously some points about how everyone said, oh, they should have done this a decade ago. I'm not saying that they should have done it a decade ago. I'm saying they should have at least started it. And look, back in the days of the old Android Police podcast, people were talking about it even back then. Like, they should probably kill ChromeOS and just turn it into Android. And okay, a site named Android Police suggesting, hey, kill the thing that's not Android and replace it with Android, that might be a little biased. I'm not going to pretend it's not. But at the same time, the idea was actually not insane. I'm not really sure that there was a good reason not to do Android at the time. Maybe there was hardware limitations and stuff like that, all of which, or like support duration issues. But those things were not only just solved, but by and large, Android is getting better support durations than Chrome OS. So, yeah, kind of not seeing the problems here. I think they probably should have done this transition several years ago, or at least started it in a more direct way.
Yeah, I don't know. Chromebooks have been in a weird place for like the last decade. I don't entirely know what it doesn't seem like they really had a plan beyond just schools.
Yeah.
Which, you can sustain off of that. Plenty of companies do. But
usually
I
not
didn't
very
see,
well, but
yeah, I never really saw a plan there for kind of just anything substantial beyond like Android and Linux apps. Like they made the half-baked Linux container. There was going to be that push for gaming Chromebooks, and I don't think that ever happened.
Nope.
Which was kind of silly to begin with, but whatever. And I mean, I don't know. I don't think they really had like a future plan. They just kind of, again, this is what Google does, where they, get lucky on something and they kind of just coast for all eternity. And they're unable to continue building up a platform. So I don't know. I think I do agree that this is something that should have been the logical next step after they started pushing Android apps so hard. Like, I think the Android VM made sense when Android apps were there to fill in functionality gaps. But at a certain point, pretty early on, like a couple years after it, became widely accessible, you would set up a new Chromebook and it would open the Play Store instead of like the Chrome Web Store or whatever. Like, that was the central place where you were supposed to go, and you were supposed to use like a big Android thing. So at that point, when almost the entire computer is running through a virtual machine, maybe the virtual machine just needs to be the computer. I don't know what to tell you. And Diablo said, what minimum RAM for Chromebook on Android is 8 gigs still good? Yeah, hardware limitations. I think there are 4 gig RAM Chromebooks that have Android apps. It'll just it won't be fine. It's gonna be really slow, but it'll do it.
So yeah, I didn't ever get close enough to Chromebooks to pay much attention to that, but so I find myself thinking that I'm thinking about this from the development cost perspective, and man, I just can't help but wonder how much money, how much development time went into supporting an OS whose only real function was to pretend to be a different OS that was made by the same company. Therefore, there was really no reason to have the OS that pretends to be a different OS. And I know that's really not fair, because Chrome OS was never pretending to be Android OS. It was just borrowing so many things from Android OS that the two of them, while certainly discernible from each other, were functionally trying to support the same app ecosystem. And that makes no sense at all to support, because that's 90% of what happens outside of what is like specific to the OS itself. So why? What's the purpose at that stage? I'm if I was a CEO of a company, I feel like the board at some point is going to ask, why do you have these two products when they both run the same apps, they both do most of the same stuff, they both cover the same use cases, with the notable exception that one of them is kind of for laptops and the other one could be for laptops, but you just kind of decide to never treat it as a thing for laptops. Like, if that's the case, I feel like the board would be wanting to ask me, why are we spending, you know, 60 million developing this each year? And I don't think I would have a good answer for them. Because somewhere out there you could say, oh, you know what? We could just make Android do this, and our development cost is going to be 20 million. Like, you could just slash a whole ton of it, and ideally, you know, reallocate those developers to other projects. But in the more practical sense, you can say, oh yeah, we're going to slash our workforce a little bit, and it's going to make your stock prices go up. Congratulations.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been that, but like, again, they could keep those people and make them work on Android tablet improvements, because it definitely still needs a lot of those, or large screen improvements. But
well, truthfully,
yeah,
I don't think they know what they would do to improve that. It's, yeah, and if they don't know, they're never going to do the right things. So it is what it is. But like I said, you know, they could reallocate the developers, and that's not really the point I'm trying to make. It just, you know,
it's weird they were duplicating effort.
Yeah. And
Which,
it's Google, so they're famous for that.
But yeah, that is the Google thing to do, for sure. They love doing it.
But yeah, I just, at some point, with as old as ChromeOS is, someone had to start asking these questions. And, you know, at various points, we did. Like, Ron Amadio has written so many pieces of basically kind of slamming ChromeOS for all of the same reasons that we obviously have and currently are. I think almost anyone who's written editorials in this sort of space has at some point or another basically come out with the opinion of ChromeOS might be good. We might even like it, or I think this about it, or I think that about it. But why does it exist? Like, can't they just do this with Android? Everyone at some point or another has said this. So, you know, it just seems like that message had to eventually get out, and someone has to have been nagging Google's executive team with this exact question.
Yeah, so again, we don't really know what this part means. Maybe this, again, they're just talking about, they mean platform as in it's going to share a kernel. But the UI stuff is still going to be separate. I don't know.
Oh, I'm assuming so, because Android OS as it stands today, I know there are some similarities in the UI, but not enough. And when it comes to Chrome OS, let's be honest, that whole thing about I always hate this because it's total BS, but that whole thing where supposedly you could, you know, close the lid on your Chrome OS laptop, walk over to the end of the pier and throw it in the water, go buy a new one and set it up, and like 10 minutes later everything is the way it was on your old one. Like, that whole narrative, it just simply is not true with Android. It's a thing that they kind of promise, and you can get part of the way there, sort of, but it's just simply not true. It was also obviously not true with Chrome OS, but let's ignore that detail. It is more true on Chrome OS. So in that perspective, I think that they're in a position where they have to keep doing kind of the custom UI and at least custom services for like account profile restoration and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, there will obviously be some dedicated stuff that's on the side just to handle the former ChromeOS base that is now going to run on Android. That that group, that department will obviously have to still exist. Um, but I think what we're gonna see is if if somebody worked primarily on the OS of Chrome OS, like the actual underlying kernel and stuff like that, those people mostly probably just don't need to be there anymore. Likewise, kind of have a suspicion that whoever works on Android's desktop mode, those people might not have a reason to be around too much longer. Because there's a larger, probably more experienced team that's worked on nothing but Chrome OS's desktop, and they probably are in a better position to do this stuff, or at least some of it.
Yeah, I don't. It's don't know what the future holds for Chromebooks, but I know they suck. They have sucked, so I can only conclude that they will continue to suck. However, I understand if you have a friend or family member who has a Windows 10 PC and you want to throw Chrome OS Flex on there for them, that seems like a good idea to me.
For now.
Even though I think most people would also be fine with like Linux Mint and you install Chrome for them. It'd probably work about the same, but slightly lower chance they could fuck up Chrome OS Flex. Some people are gifted with that. You never know.
It's a generous way to put it. Um, so yeah, all that being said, I I am at least, I'm gonna say I'm optimistic for this change. I'm sorry that some people will surely not be kept around; they'll be made redundant. And I do think that it's going to probably have its own drawbacks, but this is probably the kick that Android needed, not to not to solve the Android app or the tablet app situation. I don't think that's going to get fixed here. But I think it's a kick that they needed to make Android actually usable on desktop, and at some point might even deliver that Dex-like experience that Microsoft kept promising with Windows Phone. The idea that you could walk around with a phone, plug it into a monitor, and lo and behold, you now have a full desktop interface. Dex is kind of that, but not really. I know other things have tried to do this, and they kind of have had different degrees of success. Maybe we'll finally see that happen with Android in a like core fundamental way. I don't know if it'll happen. I'm not sure if it should, because honestly, I think we might be past the point where anyone wants this. But it'd be nice if it exists anyway. Maybe it will find a use case for a new audience. Maybe someone will figure out why something like this should exist. And when that day comes, it should just exist.
Yeah, I mean this is the thing I've bitched about with iPads is if you're going to have multiple devices on a shared platform, then you're even more incentivized to build features at the base level that can expand upwards. So, yeah, if Google makes all Chromebooks run Android, and to do that, they have to build a better desktop interface, then yeah, nothing should stop them from bringing that to phones, and you get that when you dock the phone. Like it should, I mean that was, in AOSP for a while as evidence that they were messing with, like you'd plug in a phone and it would pop up Chrome OS, and I'm sure that was just an experiment. I really don't think that ever had a chance of rolling out because it's just weird and
Yeah.
like way too many layers going on for it to be a viable product in that way. But
Yeah,
like
it
it's the
was
same.
it was very
It's the
demanding
base.
on resources too, which was
Yeah.
never a good thing.
And you get in the situation where, okay, am I running Android apps on top of Chrome on top of Android? But yeah, it shows like what they were thinking and what they could do if they wanted to. Like, yeah, in the same way that if Apple made the iPad good, it would also make the Vision Pro good. Same applies here. But I'm sure they'll fuck it up. I'm sure Chromebooks will still continue to be really annoying for anyone who is not just living in Google Docs or Android apps.
Uh, yes. Google, please make this stuff more gooder.
Or don't. I don't care. I'm not buying a Chromebook.
Yeah, neither am I. Which also, to some extent, I wonder if that's both the problem and why this makes sense as the solution. Um, and I'm going to use a completely different example, but I think it fits. I can't tell how many years it has been or had been when I kept saying this. The thing that they should do is take all of the Chromecast devices and stick Android TV on them so that you just use them as Chromecasts, and then they ninja become Android TV devices as soon as you use a remote with them. I kept saying that because the idea of a thing that is just this secret, like, oh, all I needed was this one remote and I suddenly had a bunch of new powers, new capabilities I didn't know that I had before. I could see them kind of accomplishing that with Chromebooks and Android, where you like one day you had this thing that could do Android stuff, but it wasn't very good at it, and it could do some web stuff, but also was kind of mediocre at that. And then you get an upgrade, and lo and behold, oh, all I had to do was click a couple buttons, and wow, now I actually have like proper Android experience on a laptop. That's kind of neat. That's something I want. And giving people a thing that they don't know that they want and surprising them with it and making them suddenly go, wow, this is great. This is a thing I'll totally use from here on out. Getting people to that point, super worth it. Whether they can do that, I don't know, but I kind of bet against it. Sorry, Big G, but I mean, if we're just calling odds, yours aren't. You don't have a 100% win streak, is all I'm saying. So
Yeah, I mean they're just gonna fuck this up and lay off another 1 more billion people. So
1 more billion.
Yeah, just like Morbius made at the box office.
Yes. Okay, so yeah, we probably dwelled on this for a while too long.
Yep.
Overall, I'll just go back to saying this is probably for the most part a good thing. There are so many aspects to it and so many questions about how it's going to be implemented and what stuff is going to remain, what things are going to be kind of deprecated out of existence, and a lot of possibilities for it. But I'm not sure how much we're going to know until it's long past the point that, oh, one day it's happened and they'll just point it out to everyone in the blog post. But anyway, so with that, I do believe we are done for the day. We don't have any more topics. So, Corbin, anything you'd like to talk about before we go?
Spacebar.news. Go there and put your email in the subscribe button. It's a fun activity. Also, share articles there you like.
What he's telling you to do is to right click and go to inspect, and then go down and find the button and put your email in the button. That is what he said to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just replace whatever the button text says with your email, and it'll just be a nice, fun little exercise.
Yeah, I like inspect elements. Very fun. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but I did roll out an update to the site recently where if you are logged in with an account, like if you subscribe and then you log in with your new, thing, you don't get any ads on the site at all. They all go away. Of course, you could already do that if you had an ad block, but now, it's official. Just a nice little thing. I thought it'd be helpful. I kind of wanted to make it like a one-time unlock thing for some money. I thought that would be fun. But Ghost does not support that. So I just made it a thing for all accounts. So you're welcome. And also I figured out how to customize the ads that show up on the site, which I haven't been able to do since I moved from Google AdSense to Mediavine. But I found out in their stupid documentation, there's like a hidden page. So now I turned off those floating video ads if you're on a mobile device, because those are really infuriating on a phone screen.
Indeed, they certainly are. And
they also are on desktop, but they take up a much smaller amount of real estate. So
yeah. And since I do most of my browsing on desktop, I'm turning them off my own way. Sorry. I'm not contributing to your retirement fund as much as I'd like to be.
That's very sad.
Yes. Well, I'll find a way to make it up to you in the future. I'll pay you the 13 cents that you would have made off of my video viewing history.
You'll do like 20 unpaid podcast recordings.
Or that. Am I up to 20? I honestly don't know. It feels like it's possible.
I believe there's 52 episodes of Tech Tales total, and I feel like you're probably in about half of them.
By now, I think it's slipped down to about a third. Because you've done a lot in the last, or not a lot, but you've done a few over the last like year and a half, and I've only been in, I think, one of those.
Yeah, there's been like 5 in the last 2 years. Very, very time consuming, and requires me to be in a place that is difficult to get into. So
by that you mean mental place.
Yes, partially mental, partially roping in other people, and then there's all the research and editing and stuff. So
yeah,
but I do have two Tech Tales episodes right now that are recorded, and I just have to edit them. So hoping one of those will go up before the end of the month, and the other one will be sometime in August. So get hyped.
Just don't release it on the 20th because, dude, don't compete with Google. It's always a bad idea. Well,
yeah, because the podcast episode goes away after that day. You can't listen to it anymore.
Exactly. Honestly, you might get some reactions to that.
You're like, where'd my episode go? I didn't finish listening to it. Be like, well, it's back in the Disney vault.
Yep. Just advertise that you're coming out with an episode that people can only listen to for 24 hours. And of course, that's total BS because their podcast app will just download it and they can listen anytime they want. But, it'd be a nice, novel, interesting thing to do.
I'm burning the episode to CDs, and I will mail you the CD if you say pretty please.
That's gonna get expensive.
But you have to find something with a disk drive in it. So good luck to you.
There is that, though. You can typically find stuff on Amazon for like It's $15.
25th anniversary. Yeah, I'm gonna do a Tech Tales anniversary box set, like a TV show. It'll open with a nice jewel case. That'd be fun. I'm not gonna do that, but it'd be fun.
I'm picturing custom pressed CDs, or even better, custom pressed Blu-rays, just because. And
Yeah.
and that single audio podcast episode would take up 0.0000001% of the Blu-ray disc.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I definitely couldn't fit the whole podcast on one CD because CDs are 700 megs, 690 something.
I mean, if you're fitting the audio file on there, you're good to go. If you're trying to fit the like or the audio,
like the uncompressed.
Yeah, the audio byte flow. I don't know if that's the right term for it, but yeah, if you're trying to just fit the raw audio onto a disc, yeah, not gonna make it too easily. Yeah. Though a good number of the episodes are under an hour. That fits.
Please take the CD out and flip it over for part 2.
Oh, double-sided CDs. There were a few. They did exist, kind of. Anyway, so let's see. I will be back this weekend for game streams as usual. So if you'd like to see me get frustrated as hell joining a bunch of people who've never played Overwatch before, who only showed up so they could try out Stadium, come watch that, because I say some mean things that those people never hear. And Corbin and I will be returning next week for another RambleCast, hopefully on Wednesday, assuming that there's no crazy weather pattern that makes that unrealistic. Let's see. At the moment, it's looking like it will be about 10 degrees cooler than it was yesterday. So that's a plus. That gives me a little hope. But otherwise, I think that's about it. So, the usual, if anyone would like to support the channel, there are links down below to Cash App, Streamlabs, and Patreon. And of course, huge thanks to supporters of the channel, David, Diablo, Carson, Austin, and Alyssa. Y'all are awesome. And of course, for anyone who showed up in chat and came to hang out, obviously, you're pretty awesome too. We like you. We want to keep you around. Trying to think, am I forgetting anything? Corbin, am I forgetting something? It's totally put you on the spot. Okay, so
probably not.
Yeah, I don't know. Probably am. Who cares?
Anyway. If it was important, it would make itself known.
True enough. Somewhere this week, I swear I will actually have my website up if anyone wants to click through for affiliate links to help out the site, or to help out the channel. That will also be a thing happening. But anyway, that's about it. So I hope you all have an excellent rest of your week, and we will catch you in the next one. Have a good night, everybody.
Bye.